Here we go. So in this video, I want to jump into worth. I want to jump into self-worth. Very specifically because I find it very fascinating how we've kind of grown up in a society, in a culture, in a world that has kind of taught, not kind of, has actually taught us to place our self-worth, our sense of worth outside of ourselves. Oh, acceptance. Oh, validation. Oh, this, that, and the other. You can't get your sense of self-worth from anyone else or anything else. It does not work that way. So this really fucks people up. Yeah, now that I think about it, this is definitely a conversation I'm going to have with my sweetheart. Always because we have great conversations and it really expands things, and I'm super pumped about that always. Coming to new realizations, new insights is very important. So what is this whole thing, I don't even want to call it a game, what is this whole reality of self-worth, right? Well, here's the thing. It's likely that some type of trauma happened earlier on in life, right? And that placed the individual in question regarding what it is they're worth, right? What is their worth? And then because they were like, oh no, you don't, you know, something, the trauma taught them, something happened that taught them that, like they're inherently defective or something like that, or they're just not worth showing up for, or, they're actually, they were left. So really, what are they even worth, right? And then so what ends up happening is that you just take your worth and you're like, like I was saying before, acceptance, validation, all that stuff. But externally, of course, right? And that becomes really unhealthy because nobody else can give you what you need. Nobody. And a lot of people don't understand that. And it's very hard to see that clearly for what it is when you're blinded by... Here, listen, what I want to talk about here is not only worth and, self-worth, but also belief. Because if the way that you see yourself, which is belief, if the way that you see yourself is not being worthy of greater circumstances or greater situations or greater things in your life, right? If you see yourself in such a limited way, if you see what it is that what you deserve in such a limited way, that's a barrier in terms of what you could be experiencing in life, right? So overcoming limiting beliefs is the challenge here. And now let's explore it this way, because I think that this is very important. A lot of people, and I know that I've explored this specifically with my sweetheart, and this goes, a lot of people are actually, from what I understand, carrying around pain from the past, very, very painful pain around from the past that actually has nothing to do with them. Here's an example. Somebody might carry around pain from trauma residing in physical abandonment, right? So maybe, somebody early on in their life abandoned them physically, just left, right? Just left. When you're that young and you have no idea what the fuck is going on, you go through a whole bunch of really low energy shit. Not only that, but you also take on belief systems as life goes on that you're inherently defective. Well, obviously you're inherently defective because this person left you. By the way, not only once, but multiple times, right? And so when you can look at that, and by the way, this is very challenging for a lot of people to do because they are like consistently mistaking other people's shit for theirs. By the way, this kind of goes back to projections, actually, which a lot of people also don't really fully understand. if down the line you can look back and be oh, this person left me. But then, okay, well, why did they leave you? If you're going to look at that and be like, they left me because I was this, no. Mm-mm. Get anything regarding you out of the picture. If you were a kid and someone left you, it was not your fault. It doesn't matter what trauma someone has. Abandonment should never happen, regardless of what type of abandonment it is. Physical abandonment really messes people up, though. Actually, leaving. Physically leaving. But when you can clearly look at that and be like, oh, that actually had nothing to do with me and everything to do with that person. So that person, because of their own shit, because of their own trauma, they didn't have the capacity at that time to stay, right? And by the way, they chose to be a fucking parent, so that's fucking their problem that they decided to leave, right? It's all based around their shit. That's all this is. So when you can see it clearly for what it is, it's so interesting. The reason why I'm here talking about worth, about trauma, is because so many people have put their sense of self-worth outside of them and looked for different things outside of them to fulfill that, when it's never been an external game. It's always been an internal game. And so what's interesting about this is that when you can see it clearly for what it is, and oh, wait a second, that person didn't leave me because of that wasn't my fault. That person left me because they projected their own trauma onto me. That was their shit, right? And so I just think that it's very interesting how people are walking around everyday life carrying shit that isn't theirs. And by the way, believing that they're not worth shit, even though what led them to believe that was based around somebody else's trauma that was projected onto them. And it's just crazy to think about this because, let's look at it this way. Here's a question. What's wrong with you? Okay, no. Let's erase that. What happened to you? Okay, this happened to you, but did it have anything to do with you? Okay, right? So here we go. And I enjoy exploring this question because, well, for starters, what's wrong with you has to get the fuck out of the picture. People ask each other that shit every single day, and it doesn't do anything good for anyone because there is nothing wrong with anyone. But there are a whole lot of things that have happened to people, and if you really want to know why they are the way that they are, explore that. Explore what happened to you. And so, going from there, okay, well, all right, what did happen to you? Okay, you were physically abandoned as a kid, right? Yeah, that's going to fuck you up. But the other question is, let's take it further. Are you mistaking someone else's shit for your own? Do you actually see this clearly? Good chances, the good chances that you don't. And the reason being is because if you really believe that as a kid you deserve to be left, you're out of your fucking mind because you did not. By the way, that is if that was the case that happened. Now, by the way, beyond this, there might be several things that someone, may have said to you regarding just the way that you were so difficult to deal, why did you have to have so much energy? Why were you so frustrated? Why were you so angry? That's ridiculous. Asking those kind of questions to a fucking kid. Listen, fuckface, you decided to have a kid, all right? You need to understand that a kid is a fucking wild card. If you don't have the capacity to fucking handle the energy of a child and the energy of, this wild card that is the child, then you shouldn't be a fucking parent. That's first and foremost. Secondly, if you're gonna have the fucking audacity to project your own bullshit onto the child and then, have that actually fuck up the child, which is what happens, trauma, right? and then have there be like no explanation down the line as to what happened and why what happened. That's fucking bullshit, first and foremost. Secondly, there are people every day out there walking around still carrying shit that has nothing to do with them from their past, from the people that traumatized them, that just projected their trauma onto them. And it's just fucking absurd, because the reason why this is so fucking absurd is because worth, right here. Worth is foundationally one of the most important things that a human being carries around. They either believe in regards to a sense of, let me make sure I say this correctly. Let me make sure I say this correctly. Basically this way. They're either walking around with a low sense of self-worth or a high sense of self-worth. And it is likely that low sense of self-worth came from the trauma, but the trauma had nothing to do with them. So they don't see themselves clearly. And that's just really fucked up, because worth is one of the most important things to clearly see. Like, oh, I don't have to see myself in a sense of low self-worth. Why? Because this shit that happened to me earlier on, and by the way, some things that happen to you and things that happen for you, that's an entirely different video. I will get into that at some point, because it's really cool to explore, and it actually allows you to see things in a different way that makes them wildly beneficial. It's a shift in perspective. It's a mindset and identity shift, actually. But going back to this whole thing of sense of self-worth, every single day, people are carrying around shit from other people that never had anything to do with them. They're mistaking it for their own, and it's completely fucking them up. It's fucking their life up. That made no sense. It's fucking their life up. There we go. It's fucking their... just everything. Like, it's kind of... It's a massive blockage, right? That's just... if you don't see yourself clearly in terms of worth, based on trauma, based on projections and shit that other people have given to you, it's kind of like a king toes. It's going to be a blockage. You're not going to see yourself clearly. You're not going to, you're not going to receive abundantly, right? And it's very important to see all that stuff clearly, because when you don't, in other words, you're just fucking blind.